Hi, good day, and welcome to this class. In today's session and in the videos that are going to follow, we are going to talk about OET on computer. In this particular lesson, we're going to compare OET on paper and OET on computer for the listening subtest of the OET. So if you want to know what the advantages are of taking OET on computer versus OET on paper, if you want to know if this is a more convenient, a much better examination for you to take, and ultimately, if you want to know if this is the perfect exam modality for you to take, then this video is the right one for you. My name is Brian. I'm one of the lecturers of 9.09er English, and let's get started with this session. Perhaps the first thing that you need to understand about OET on computer versus OET on paper is that there's much less interaction between you and the invigilators on the floor, perhaps, or the proctor who's going to give you instructions during the entire examination, because the instructions are not going to be given by one person. Instead, when you're seated at your computer station, where you're going to take your OET on computer listening test, there will only be 1 minute for you to read through all of the instructions on screen before the audio plays automatically. I would say that the similarity between the OET on paper and OET on computer, on the other hand, is that it's paced by the recording. So the recording is the one that's going to set the pace of the examination or how fast the examination is going to run. You cannot pause or replay the recording at any time. You cannot go back to any part of the recording just because, for example, you missed a particular item. You cannot completely replay the entire recording because you've not heard it the first time or you were not ready when you listened the first time around. So you have to be absolutely concentrated when you're taking OET on computer because you don't have an opportunity for you to have the audio replayed. When you're taking OET on paper, there are plenty of opportunities for you to concentrate on the test and to anticipate what's going to happen. The proctor is usually going to give you instructions. The invigilators are going to hand in your test booklets one by one. And during that process, while you're waiting for the examination to begin, you can compose yourself and put yourself in the proper disposition to take the examination and prepare yourself for what is going to come when you start the listening examination. Unfortunately, you do not have this opportunity when you're taking OET on computer. What's more is that you don't have the 2 minutes checking time after the test is over. You would remember that when you're taking OET on paper, you have a couple of minutes after the test is over for you to just gloss over your answers or review your answers. Just in case you haven't answered a few items, you can go back to them and make an intelligent guess, perhaps. Or you can just write any answer that you've chosen, perhaps, especially for parts B and C when there's just a multiple choice type of question. But in your OET on computer, unfortunately, you do not have 2 minutes checking time at the end of your listening test. What you get are 20-second intervals, and you have 20 seconds for part A recordings, you have 20 seconds for part B, and you also have 20 seconds for part C audio recordings. So basically, that's all you get for your examination under your OET on computer. I think that's one of the disadvantages of taking this examination because you only move forward. You cannot go back to questions that you have already answered, unlike on the paper delivered OET, in which you have the opportunity to go back to previous items and check your answers or make an intelligent guess when you have 2 minutes at the end of your examination to check your answers. So, as I've mentioned, you only have to sail through the different parts of the examination and you can't go back. You only have an opportunity to answer the questions per section once. And you have to finalize your answers because you cannot return to previous sections that you have already answered. So In essence, the implication of this is you have to use the checking time per section and make sure that all of your answers are complete before you go to the next section or you click next or before the audio for the next section starts playing. Because again, you do not have the opportunity to go back to previous items that you have not been able to answer. It is not advisable to leave any of those answers blank because you cannot guess towards the end, since once you move to the next section, there's no going back. Now, if there's anything that's comforting, perhaps, for those who are taking OET on computer, is that the OET on computer layout is very identical to the OET on paper layout. The exam format is going to be the same. The question types are going to be the same. Parts A, B, and C are going to be identical. So it's very comforting knowing that the test is identical to the paper delivered OET. But of course, on the paper delivered format, the page is quite long. You have enough space for all of the items. And you can definitely look at all of the items at once, just staring at your or glancing upon your test questionnaire. On the computer screen, however, not all of the questions will fit. Otherwise, the font is going to be extremely small and it's going to be very impossible for you to read. So, what you need to do to look at all of the questions is to scroll up and down. So, you will have to use the scrolling function so that you will be able to see all of the questions that you have on the computer screen. Now, at this point, I'm going to talk about the different parts of your examination, and I'm going to differentiate OET on paper versus OET on computer with regard to the different parts of the examination. So let's start with part A. In part A of your examination, you have 30 seconds to read all of the questions, just like in your paper delivered format. You will have to not write your answers, but type your answers as you listen. You can click an item to select a particular box that you want to answer, or you can hit the tab key to jump from one item to another. I think this is a more convenient option because if you hover your cursor on the screen trying to look for the boxes where you're going to put the answers, it's going to take much more time than when you're just skipping from one item to another using the tab key. So I think if you're the kind of person who wants convenience in your life and you don't want to be distracted by hovering on the screen trying to look for the boxes, then this is a very good practice to just hit the tab key to move from one question to the next box or the next item. You're not expected to write long answers for part A. I know that when you're taking OET on computer, there's a tendency for you to type much faster than when you write things on a page. And that's a given because it's easier to type than to write. But you're not expected to write long answers in part A of your examination. Just like your paper delivered format, the answers are supposed to be just a short phrase or a few words. Probably one or two words will be enough as your answer for part A. So you don't have to overdo your part A, even if you're taking the paper delivered format of OET. Now, let's jump to part B of your examination. In this part of the test, you will have 15 seconds to look at the questions before the recording starts playing. Just like the paper delivered format of the OET, you will be selecting your answers as you listen. Now, the only difference is you cannot take down notes in front of the computer. What's going to be a little different is that there's a strikeout function tool that you can use to cancel out answers which you do not think are correct. So just in case you want to cross out some of the options that you feel are not correct, you can use the strikeout function tool. This is not necessary. So you basically just need to click your correct answer, click on the response that you have selected, and it's going to highlight yellow. And that means to say that that's the answer that you've chosen. You might want to skip striking out a particular option. It is absolutely your choice. You don't really need to use the strikeout function tool, but definitely you will have to select the correct answer. And again, you will know it's the answer that you have selected because it will highlight yellow once it has already been selected. So in part B of your examination, you would know it's actually very simple. There are a total of 6 recordings that you'll have to listen to. You will have to listen to 1 minute extracts per question. You have one question only per item. Now, it's very important for you when you're taking OET on computer to answer all of those questions and not skip anything, because again, you cannot go back to any question that you have left unanswered. Okay, now let's move on to the final part of your listening examination on computer. Now, for this part, which is part C, you have 90 seconds to read the questions before the presentation or extract or interview begins. And you may want to use the same functions as you did in your part B of your examination, like the highlight function tool may be used in this part of the examination just to highlight some of the keywords that you think might be helpful in you getting the right answers. Also, you can use the strikeout function tool just in case you want to cancel out some of the options which are confusing for you or which may not be the correct answer. Although, again, this is optional, and you just need to click on the answer that you have chosen, and it highlights yellow and it will indicate that that's the answer that you have selected. Once you're done with part C of your examination, a pop-up window appears, and that indicates that the time is up and the test has already been completed. So there you go. It's actually a little different, but also quite similar to your OET on paper examination. So I hope this video has helped you to decide, at least for the listening component, which one is a better option for you and which one is going to help you to increase your aptitude to get the best possible results for your OET. So good luck on your OET, and I hope to see you in the next videos in where we're going to talk about the reading on computer examination, the writing on computer examination, and also the speaking test if there's any difference at all when you're taking the computer delivered OET. Once again, my name is Brian. I shall see you in the next one.